joined by Jonathan Cao. He's the Managing Director for Greater China at BDC Travel. Good to see you, sir. What's going on in this dispute? There must be a backstory to this, right?
Hi, Phil. Yes, so continuously for the past 2 years since the pandemic, U.S. and China have been in this situation, a tit-for-tat situation for the last 2 years. So basically, what started is China's circuit breaker policy regarding COVID coming inbound from flights from the U.S. So they have, according to the circuit breaker policies, 4% of onboard passengers having COVID, they'll suspend the flight. So this is what's happening, and we saw that the DOT has suspended, in retaliation, 26 flights coming from China as well. So I think one thing for sure, it's really a burden on the travelers having flights canceled last minute and scrambling for flights.
Right, and I would imagine it's, so I have read about this on other flights in and out of Asia to other destinations, that they would get passengers that test positive, the flights would be suspended for a couple of weeks, they'd have to rebook all the passengers or refund the money. It's basically complete chaos, right? You're just creating more chaos. But from China's perspective, if they say they want a zero policy and they want, the people to come in there that all test negative, is there a middle ground? Could the airlines test the passengers before they get on the flight? But I suppose that U.S. airlines probably don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, so I think some of the foreign carriers are not doing that as proactively as the China government wanted. So I think there needs to be a middle ground, but we are seeing actually some signs of relaxation on the rules as well. So recently, the new forms when you fill out entering China and leaving China, the China government has already scrapped all the information about NAT test and the infection status and vaccination date. So we're seeing signs of mixed results. So China definitely is not giving up the zero COVID strategy anytime soon.
Yeah. So okay. So as an example, let's say our studio director here, Ron, he flies to China, okay, on a U.S. airline or a Chinese airline. He lands and he tests positive. What happens to him?
Then he will be brought into a centralized facility. So depending on symptoms, more likely a hospitalization. And once he's tested negative again, he will then be transferred to a hotel or a quarantine facility for more observation. And then probably, if everything is negative, then it's a 7 + 3 days quarantine, and before he or she can get back into the public, I guess.
Right. So basically, his vacation is ruined. And so I'm going to look at now from the U.S. airlines perspective, and quite frankly, the traveler's perspective is nobody's going to want to travel under that environment, because there are people out there who are positive that don't show symptoms that they may or may not know. I suppose they could pre-test ahead of time, but what does that happy medium look like to you? I know things are loosening up, but let's push forward 30 to 60 days from now. There's got to be a happy medium, because nobody wants to travel under that environment.
Yeah, so I think it's still very challenging. I'm not sure if the China government will relax the rules any further anytime soon, but at the moment, the quarantine stays, I think. So it's really preventative for all non-essential travel, unless it's really necessary, you need to travel. Most travelers are shying away from that.
So how about 2023? Because at least there's the trend that in Beijing or in China that they are beginning to relax some of the policies. And I know the zero COVID is controversial, or in some cases even political, but let's put that aside for just a moment. From a structural standpoint, it is very hard to have business meetings, let alone vacations, if that's going to be the case for the next 100 years. So something to me seems to have to give here.
Yeah, it is correct. So we do look forward to maybe some good news after the Party Congress in October, the 20th Party Congress. But at the same time, we see some of the relaxation of the rules. The embassies are starting to issue visas to foreigners and students again. And then starting in September, in 2 days' time, the travelers with valid APAC travel cards and study permits will be allowed to come back to China again. So this has been suspended for 2.5 years already. So I think we are hopeful. We do see that the international may return probably later this year or early next year. But I think it will be pretty happy to see a 30% recovery compared to 2019 level.
The airlines are impacted. We talked about the U.S. airlines. There's 4 other Chinese carriers impacted, but there are also dozens and dozens of other carriers going in and out of Europe, China, the Middle East. I mean, there are a ton of flights going in and out that have all been affected by this. Doesn't the International Airline Association, can't they negotiate with Beijing? Or maybe the flip side of that question is, what does Beijing want as a ideal solution to this?
Yeah, so I think at the moment, continuously, it's to uphold the zero COVID strategy. So the government, China authorities are really looking for the airlines support to help test or ensure that all their passengers are free of COVID before they travel. So I think it's challenging for international carriers as they see that it is sort of out of their hand. It's very difficult for them to control or test or do mandatory tests on the passengers, as even in the U.S. and some of the other countries, masks are no longer required. So I think there is definitely a dilemma there and a separation of opinion.
Well, look, I know a lot of friends that miss going to China. I would in fact go. I would be happy to take a pre-test if that's what it took to go, or what they call a home test. So maybe that's a possibility down the road. Jonathan, we hope to have you back for a more positive update down the road, but really appreciate the time on this very important topic.
Thank you, Philip.
All right.